We are joined by Rick Grinnell, Senior Advisor for National Security and Foreign Policy here at the ACLJ. And obviously, we bring him in this situation because he obviously was the former acting Director of National Intelligence. Now, Rick, this is a big deal. I want to make sure our audience understands this. The Biden administration, we know this now, been withholding what we're considering what could be war-ending information. Information details on where the last Hamas leadership, some of the people, the ringleaders are, certain tunnel situation, because the U.S. has pretty good intelligence, it seems, but they've decided to make this a political stunt and not help our allies.
Look, it's infuriating. It makes me very angry to see how, once again, the Democrats are playing politics with intelligence. We can't do that. We've got to remove the politics from intelligence. But here's a situation where they literally are holding back information, possibly crucial information. I've spoken to several intel officials who are currently employed in the federal government intelligence system. And I spoke to them this morning. And one individual, she says that it's so bad that everybody is talking about it and complaining that it ruins the credibility of the intelligence agencies when we're trying to hold back intelligence or manipulate it in some way. Remember, this is an administration, Avril Haines as DNI, who started off her tenure as repackaging a whole bunch of information on Saudi Arabia in order to show the Iranians that somehow we were going to play nice and be on their team. And it's been a disaster ever since. We've placated the Iranians, we've given them money, and look what we've got in war. And now we're holding back intelligence. It's like someone needs to tell Avril Haines and Joe Biden that we still have U.S. hostages, and providing intelligence to the Israelis about Hamas, about where our hostages may be, is crucial information. It's un-American to hold it back.
Rick, we know that the president is in a very difficult political situation here at home, as you see the protests across the country, the encampments on campuses, the vile anti-Semitism that's going on. And it has to be asked, when you see a move like this, where they're withholding potentially devastating to Hamas information from Israel, our ally in this time of war, and the president is trying to appease a base at home and trying to coax an ally to do something that could benefit him politically. Do you see any parallels with what the Democrats accused Donald Trump of doing with Ukraine here?
I mean, one thing that I've learned over the years is that whenever the Democrats point their finger, they're trying to distract. And so there's clearly an element of they accuse us of the exact same things that they're doing. But let me also say this, Will, I think it's really important to say is that I don't believe that what the Biden administration is doing is helpful to Arab Americans or people in Michigan or to the Palestinians, because the supporting Hamas or hiding information about where Hamas is only makes this war go on longer. The whole focus is to get our hostages back and to crush Hamas. Why would they protect Hamas by hiding information about Hamas? They seem to constantly mix up this idea that Palestinians or Michiganders or Democrats somehow are supporting Hamas leadership just simply because they want to see this situation calm down in Gaza. I actually know many Arabs who want to see this over with immediately. And the way to do it, they recognize, is to return the hostages and crush Hamas. They're not being represented by Hamas, the Palestinian people. The Palestinians need to throw Hamas overboard and say they do not represent us, crush them, and let's get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's true for a lot of Israelis also who do not want to see an ongoing war here. I think there is that sort of warmonger mentality that people think are coming out of the Israelis. And the Israeli friends that I have and I've talked to, trust me, their economy is suffering because of this. They are taking big hits. They understand the necessity of taking out Hamas, and they feel like it is time for a lot of them. But look, the whole country really is built on a couple different things: technology and exporting that technology. And the other thing they're really known for is tourism. And guess what's really not happening right now is tourism. Getting in and out of the country is still very difficult. And finally, things were starting just a few weeks ago. Things were starting to finally tick back. You had airlines saying, okay, we're going to start flying back into Israel. And then you had the Iran attack. So it's not like all of a sudden Israel is excited to be in this war. They want it to be over too. So if you have that vital information and you're not sharing it, it does feel, like Will said, a very political moment. And then at the same time, again, just sort of doublespeak happening. And I saw this in the New York Times actually sent an email last week, or just over the weekend. And the headline was, the Biden administration has concluded it is reasonable to assess that Israel's military campaign in Gaza has violated international law. Now you read one more paragraph and it says, now the State Department also told Congress in a written report that it has not found specific instances that would justify the withholding of military aid. So again, more doublespeak, more political rhetoric, just playing with the emotions of the voters.
Look, the Biden administration, every single appointee, as well as the media in Washington, D.C., think that they can do this doublespeak. They're hypocrites. And let me just tell them one thing. I have been talking to lots of Arab Americans across this country, hoping that they will support Donald Trump. And I'm hearing great things from them because Arab Americans, like evangelicals and pro-Israel individuals in America, believe two things. One, Iran is the problem. When you fund Iran, you get terrorism. The Trump administration didn't fund Iran. Guess who did? The Biden administration. And the second thing is they know Hamas is the problem. They're focused on getting rid of Hamas. Arab leaders know that Hamas can never be in control going forward. So wiping them out and getting rid of them is the goal. They need to do it faster. And we need to stop telling Israel to slow down. I'll finish with this. I think the idea of a ceasefire right now means when you call for a ceasefire, you're calling for the hostages to remain with Hamas and the problem to linger.
Rick, a big question for me, and when you hear this type of language from Secretary of State Blinken in this report to Congress that the U.S. Has determined that Israel likely violated international law. Is this a huge gift to the ICC that we know is just chomping at the bit to get after Israeli officials for war crimes when now you have the United States saying they likely committed or violated international law?
I mean, these international courts are really a disaster, and the Europeans need to understand what they're doing to the rule of law and to justice by propping up these international courts. I worked at the UN for 8 years. I know the terrible political nature of the ICC. The Hague is quickly behind them as becoming just as political. The American taxpayers need to speak up and say, stop funding ICC, stop funding the Hague. Jack Smith came from the Hague, and it's a disaster. It's way too political. No one's watching it. And we've got too many people who are getting caught up in politics in Europe or Eastern Europe or the Balkans, now the Middle East, all because these courts are run amok.
Yeah, I think that is the truth. And it's something that we've been dealing with here at the ACLJ for a long time. And look, we get engaged at the UN, we get engaged at the ICC because people have to. We have to be there. It doesn't mean we want to be. It doesn't mean we like the idea of existing, but we do have to be there. Your voice has to be heard in these global courts or whatever it is. It may sound dystopian, and trust me, it kind of is. But without us being there, your voice isn't heard. And that's what we do here at the ACLJ. I mean, again, I go back to that quote that I heard this weekend on Hamas. It was, I think, Douglas Murray was on Bill Maher, and he said something to the effect of, you can't put out 80% of a fire. And that's what's happened right now in Gaza. They've put out 80% of it, and now you're telling them they can't go finish the job and take out terrorism once and for all. And how we're going to control that is by withholding information. Rick, and we only got a minute left. As someone who's been in that job, as someone who has had access to that intelligence, I know you can't tell us all the details there, but this is the reason you have foreign intel that are working to help and support your allies.
Well, the leaks are the problem. And in this particular case, the leaks are a big problem because they're showing that the intelligence community is withholding information from our ally Israel, all because Joe Biden wants a better strategy for Michigan. The political people are making the decisions about intelligence. The political people are making decisions about foreign policy. And I would argue that in the Biden administration, I think they're all one. I think everybody who's national security driven is political. And that's a huge problem.
Yeah, and that's a sad state of affairs. Look, we're here at the ACLJ as the Biden administration seems to be dictating how Israel is going to be able to defend themselves. We are there to help support Israel.